The Adventures of Alumag, the Vortex Elemental. Part 1, Whispers of the Wind. High above the earth, where the skies turn silver and clouds weave their endless tapestries, dwelled Alumag, a being of air and tempest. His body shimmered like heat haze, an eternal dance of currents and breezes. His core swirled with the power of cyclones, his form stretching and spinning as he willed. To mortals who glimpsed him, Alumag appeared as a man-shaped storm, translucent yet commanding, with his lower half vanishing into a twisting funnel of wind. Alumag was both a force of nature and a playful spirit. He reveled in the freedom of the skies, often diving into thunderstorms to race bolts of lightning or soaring across serene sunlit expanses, scattering clouds with a flick of his wrist. Yet, his heart belonged not solely to the heavens. He had an insatiable curiosity about the world below, the solid land and its peculiar inhabitants. One bright morning, Alumag descended from his cloudy perch to visit a village nestled in a valley. The town was called Windval, a place where the breeze whispered through every crevice and wind chimes adorned every home. The villagers often told tales of the vortex spirit, a guardian who occasionally intervened to help them in their times of need. Alumag, amused by the stories, decided it was time to play his part once more. A mischievous arrival. Alumag's arrival in Windval was as subtle as a spring zephyr. He first spiraled invisibly around the marketplace, lifting stray hats into the air and sending skirts and cloaks flaring. Vendors' cries of surprise soon turned to laughter as they chased their goods. A baker's tray of freshly baked rolls was suddenly lifted high, the rolls raining down in a soft cascade. "It's the vortex spirit again," someone shouted, their tone equal parts exasperation and delight. Satisfied with his introduction, Alumag allowed his semi-transparent form to shimmer into view. Gasps rippled through the crowd as they saw the outline of a humanoid figure composed of twisting air, his features faint but distinct. His voice, when he spoke, was like the sighing of a gentle breeze. "Fear not, good people of Windval," Alumag said with a playful bow, his torso swirling as he dipped. "Your humble guest means no harm, today." The villagers knew better than to chastise a spirit. Instead, they welcomed him with a feast, though the food was laid out on a long table outside rather than risk their carefully prepared dishes being whisked away by his currents. As the villagers dined, Alumag entertained them by creating miniature whirlwinds that danced across the table, lifting blossoms and leaves into intricate patterns. The storm's warning. The festivities were interrupted when an old farmer arrived in a panic. "A storm is coming," he cried, "and not one of our gentle rains. It's a great gale from the north. The river is already rising, and our crops may be lost." Alumag's swirling form grew still for a moment, his core dimming as he listened. Far above, he could sense the approaching storm, a massive front of dark clouds churning with heavy winds and sheets of rain. It was a wild thing, untamed and dangerous. "Leave it to me," Alumag said, his voice now carrying a note of authority. He soared upward, leaving behind a gust that tousled the villagers' hair and rattled the chimes. Rising into the storm's path, Alumag stretched his form wide, merging with the winds. He swirled into a towering cyclone, his vortex spinning counter to the storm's currents, weakening its power. With great effort, he carved a channel through the storm clouds, redirecting them away from Windval. Rain fell harmlessly into distant forests, and the gale's fury dissipated into a gentle breeze. When Alumag returned to the village, the people cheered, calling him their savior. But Alumag only smiled faintly. "Even a wild wind can be persuaded to dance," he said cryptically before vanishing back into the sky. "A game of currents." Though he delighted in the villagers' gratitude, Alumag soon grew restless. His next journey took him farther afield, to the rolling dunes of the vast sands, where desert nomads spoke of a rogue vortex terrorizing their caravans. Eager for a challenge, Alumag followed the whispers of the wind until he encountered the rogue, a smaller vortex elemental, wild and chaotic, its form barely coherent. "Who are you, Tempest child?" Alumag asked, his voice firm yet compassionate. The rogue screeched, its chaotic winds lashing out. Alumag dodged gracefully, his form shifting like a stream dividing around a rock. Realizing words were futile, Alumag decided to teach the young elemental a lesson. He summoned the winds to his command, creating a vast ring of cyclones that encircled the rogue. The smaller elemental thrashed, but there was no escape. Alumag began a slow, deliberate dance, his currents weaving a mesmerizing pattern. The rogue, compelled by the rhythm, stilled its frenzy and mirrored Alumag's movements. Slowly, the chaos subsided, and the rogue's form stabilized into a coherent spiral. "Now you see," Alumag said gently. "Power is not in destruction but in control." The rogue made no reply, but its winds became soft and steady. Together, they soared above the desert, a pair of whirlwinds painting spirals in the sand below. A rising tide. As Alumag bid farewell to the rogue elemental, he felt a pull toward the coast, where the ocean met the sky. Stories of strange happenings among the seaside cliffs reached his ears, tales of powerful gusts sweeping ships off course and strange whirlwinds forming unbidden over the waves. Intrigued, Alumag turned his gaze westward, the call of new adventures tugging at his currents. With a whisper of wind and a promise of return, he disappeared into the horizon, ready to face whatever awaited him next. Part 2, The Tempest's Call. Far beyond the tranquil hills of Windval and the blistering dunes of the vast sands, Alumag found himself drawn toward the restless seas. His essence danced on salty breezes, and the cries of seabirds mixed with the rhythm of crashing waves. The coastal cliffs below were alive with whispers of strange occurrences, and Alumag's curiosity, ever insatiable, propelled him toward the mysteries of the ocean. The Maelstrom's heart. As he neared the cliffs, Alumag spotted a fleet of fishing vessels battling monstrous winds. Waves rose like walls, and a fierce maelstrom churned in the waters just offshore. Sailors shouted prayers to the sky, pleading for mercy. Alumag descended, his translucent form materializing above the largest ship. "Fear not, mortals," he called out, his voice carrying over the tempest. "I will face this rogue wind." The fishermen could only gape as Alumag dove into the heart of the storm. The maelstrom, a towering spiral of frothing sea and sky, seemed almost alive. Alumag recognized it at once as another elemental, though far older and more powerful than the rogue he had tamed in the desert. "Who disturbs my waters?" roared the maelstrom, its voice like thunder breaking upon the rocks. "I am Alumag, born of the winds and keeper of balance," Alumag replied. "Your fury threatens these mortals. Stand down, or I will end this by force." The maelstrom's laughter shook the heavens. "You, a wisp of air, dare challenge me? Then come, little vortex, and be unmade." Alumag surged forward, his form twisting into a spiraling lance of wind. He plunged into the core of the maelstrom, their currents colliding in a cacophony of roaring air and crashing waves. The clash was immense, their combined power forming towering cyclones that raced across the ocean. To subdue the ancient elemental, Alumag employed all his mastery of wind magic. He crafted spiraling barriers to contain the maelstrom's wrath and countered its chaotic surges with precision strikes of controlled gusts. Slowly, the storm weakened. With a final, triumphant surge, Alumag enveloped the maelstrom's core, compressing its power into a small, harmless vortex that dispersed into the sea. The waters calmed, and the fishermen, now safe, cheered from their vessels. Alumag hovered above the waves, his form flickering faintly from the exertion. "Balance is restored," he said softly, before ascending into the sky once more. The wind's gambit. Though victorious, Alumag felt a deep weariness in his currents. Seeking solace, he journeyed to the Sky Spire peaks, a range of towering mountains said to touch the heavens themselves. Here, the winds were wild and free, and Alumag often came to meditate and renew his strength. As he soared among the crags, he sensed a disturbance. The winds carried whispers of a great winged beast terrorizing the highlands. Alumag followed the trail of disrupted currents until he found the creature, a colossal rock, its wings dark as storm clouds, its talons glinting like steel. The rock circled above a mountain village, swooping down to snatch livestock and destroy rooftops with its powerful gales. Alumag confronted the beast midair, his form swirling with determination. "Mighty rock, why do you sow chaos among these people?" The rock's eyes, glowing like molten gold, locked onto Alumag. "The mortals encroach upon my domain," it growled. "Their noise and smoke disturb the sacred winds. They must leave, or I will drive them out." Understanding the rock's grievance, Alumag sought to mediate. "There is a way to coexist. Let me speak with the mortals on your behalf. Violence will only bring ruin." The rock's answer was a deafening screech as it lunged toward Alumag, its wings creating gusts strong enough to shatter stone. Dodging gracefully, Alumag retaliated by summoning a vortex that encased the rock, holding it aloft. "Listen to reason," Alumag implored, his voice sharp as a gale. The rock thrashed against the vortex, but Alumag's resolve held firm. Finally, the creature stilled, its fierce gaze softening. "Very well, wind spirit. Speak to the mortals. If they honor their pact to respect these peaks, I will spare them." Alumag descended to the village and relayed the rock's demands. The villagers, though fearful, agreed to limit their expansion and honor the sacred winds of the mountains. When Alumag conveyed this promise to the rock, the great bird let out a triumphant cry and soared into the skies, leaving the village in peace. A gathering storm. Alumag's victories brought him both pride and unease. The conflicts he had resolved were but ripples in a greater tide of unrest. The elements themselves seemed to grow more volatile, their harmony threatened by an unseen force. Determined to uncover the truth, Alumag began to seek out the other elemental beings that dwelled across the realms. His journey took him to the glacial wastes, where frost elementals whispered of melting glaciers and unnatural heat. He ventured to the verdant canopy, a sprawling rainforest, where Sylphs spoke of violent storms uprooting ancient trees. Everywhere he went, the signs pointed to a growing imbalance, one that even the elementals could not fully comprehend. As Alumag soared over the world, he felt the winds carry a single, chilling word to his core: tempest. Somewhere, a great storm was brewing, one that threatened to engulf all of creation. Alumag knew he could not face it alone. Gathering his strength, he resolved to seek allies among both mortals and elementals, for only united could they withstand the coming tempest. Part 3, The Eye of the Storm. Alumag soared through the heavens, his form a blur of twisting winds as he raced against the gathering chaos. The whispers of the winds had grown into howls, warning of a colossal tempest forming in the distance. This storm, unlike any he had encountered before, was no ordinary force of nature. It bore a will of its own, a malevolent intelligence that sought to unmake the balance of the world. The Council of the Elements. Recognizing the magnitude of the threat, Alumag resolved to convene the ancient Council of the Elements. Hidden deep within the world's heart, this council was where the primal beings of earth, fire, water, and air once met to maintain harmony. The council had not gathered in centuries, but Alumag's urgency breathed life into its dormant chambers. Alumag's first destination was the Ember Cleft, a chasm of roaring flames and molten rivers where the fire elemental Ignarian resided. Ignarian's form was a towering figure of crackling flames, his voice a deep, resonant roar. Alumag Ignarian said, his fiery eyes narrowing, "You dare summon me from my forge?" "The tempest threatens us all," Alumag replied, his currents swirling with resolve. "Your fires will not burn if the winds tear the world asunder." After a tense moment, Ignarian relented. "For the sake of balance, I will join you. But do not expect me to temper my flames." Next, Alumag traveled to the ocean's abyss, a vast underwater cavern illuminated by bioluminescent tides. There, he met Undine, the water elemental, whose form shifted between liquid and mist. Her voice was as soothing as a flowing stream. "The tempest disrupts even the deep currents," she said gravely. "I will aid you, Alumag, but beware, this storm is not of our making." Finally, Alumag ascended to the Stone Reach, a colossal mountain where the earth elemental Terek resided. Terek was a massive, unyielding figure of rock and crystal, his movements deliberate and heavy. "The winds speak true," Terek rumbled. "This tempest must be stopped. Lead on, Alumag, and I will stand firm against it." With the council assembled, the four elementals combined their powers to locate the tempest's origin. Their magic revealed a swirling void at the heart of the great storm, a place where reality itself seemed to unravel. They named it the Eye of the Storm, and together, they prepared to confront the malevolent force within. The descent into chaos. As the elementals approached the Eye, the skies darkened, and the winds screamed with fury. The tempest's power was immense, and its chaotic currents battered even Alumag's resilient form. Ignarian's flames flickered against the howling gales, Undine's waters churned into whirlpools, and Terek's rocky frame cracked under the strain. "Hold strong!" Alumag shouted, his voice cutting through the cacophony. "Together, we can tame this chaos." At the heart of the Eye, they found the tempest's core, a swirling mass of blackened winds and jagged lightning. Within it was a shadowy figure, a corrupted air elemental twisted by hatred and despair. Its voice echoed like 1,000 storms. "You dare challenge me," the tempest roared. "I am the storm eternal. I will unmake your fragile balance and scatter your essence to the winds." The battle that ensued was cataclysmic. Ignarian unleashed torrents of fire, carving through the storm's darkness. Undine summoned towering waves, quenching the tempest's lightning strikes. Terek created walls of stone to shield his allies, while Alumag wove intricate patterns of wind magic to counter the tempest's chaotic currents. The tempest fought back with relentless fury, its power seemingly limitless. But the elementals' combined strength began to turn the tide. Alumag, at the center of the battle, channeled all his energy into a final, desperate gambit. He created a vortex of unparalleled complexity, a spiral so precise that it began to unravel the tempest's core. "Now!" Alumag shouted. "Strike together!" Ignarian's flames, Undine's waters, and Terek's stone surged into the vortex, their elements intertwining with Alumag's winds. The tempest howled in rage as its power was drained, its form collapsing into a harmless breeze. The winds of change. As the storm dissipated, the skies cleared, revealing a serene expanse of stars. The elementals, battered but victorious, gathered at the now calm eye of the storm. In the stillness, they felt the world breathe a sigh of relief. "The balance is restored," Undine said softly. "For now," Ignarion added, his flames dimming. "But we must remain vigilant." Terek nodded, his voice a deep rumble. "The harmony of the elements is fragile. Let this victory remind us of our duty to protect it." Alumag, though weary, felt a sense of fulfillment. He had not only preserved the balance but also strengthened the bonds between the elements. As the council dispersed, Alumag lingered for a moment, his form shimmering against the starlit sky. "The winds carried his whisper across the world, wherever the balance falters, I will be there. For I am the Vortex Elemental, keeper of the winds." With that, he ascended into the heavens, ready to face whatever challenges the future might hold. The adventures of Alumag were far from over, but for now, the world could rest, its harmony secured by the winds. The end.